Which isn't true.
Yes, he doesn't have to
His are
embellish.
partially true.
Exactly.
I'm not so
There's some
lucky.
truth in it.
The more alcohol that gets injected, the less truth there is.
But everybody else has heard it so many times.
No, no, no,
hear
no.
that.
I've never heard of it.
I'll hear it
You have your
again.
permission to go ahead anyway.
Giddy
Yes.
up.
Once upon a time,
This is a no shitter.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had this involvement with the Soviet MiG aircraft. I was out on air patrol, second flight of the day, did bombing on factories and warehouses in the morning, and then sent back out on the combat air patrol, and it didn't expect any activity. Matter of fact, the rumor was MiGs don't fly over water. So we had been good weather in the morning, and now it's a blizzard. And 4 of us were briefed and went out, took off, joined up, climbed from clouds starting at 500 feet to 12,000 feet. And while we were in the climbing, our combat air patrol was reporting to us that there are inbound bogies, unknown aircraft, don't know who they are, and from the north. So kept climbing to on top of the clouds, and looking to the north, I could see the contrails, and obviously clearly 7 of them. And I reported that about that time, the leader of the flight reported a problem with a warning light on his
Instrument.
engine fuel system.
Oh dear.
And they sent him and his wingman back to remain at 13,000 feet, right above the clouds, over the task force. And so I took command, and I had a wingman that I'd never flown with before, and charged my guns and fired them, and everything was ready to go. And I am directed to intercept them, so I'm going north, and they're going south, and they passed right over me, and I could see they were bigs. And reported that, and they said, well, that's your, hate to say it, target, because they didn't want me to shoot you. And I said, okay, to intercept. So I kept climbing toward them, and they turned around and headed north again, and they got about 40 miles north of me, and they broke into 2 groups, and they were probably 55,000 feet, and making these contrails, and so 4 of them to the right, 3 to the left, and they dropped below the contrail level, and I couldn't see them anymore. I reported that, lost contact, and they said, we don't hold them either. A smaller group didn't pick them up on radar. So they ordered me to come back toward the ship to establish a barricade back and forth patrol lane from the last sighting and the force. And while doing that, 4 of them came in, let's say 10 o'clock is out of term we use, going this way, and 10 o'clock is here. So they were coming in at me more or less head on. And as I first spotted them, they were already close and shooting.
Oh, wow.
Don't further have any choices. No way I could run tail or anything. So I turned hard and ended up on the tail end airplane, fired a short burst, and he dropped out and smoking at one time. And my wingman left me and followed him down. So I've got 6 of them remaining, and 3 came in that I hadn't seen before. And at that time, well, right after I shot that, the 3 remaining went steep climb and went up to 2,000 feet or so above me, reversed and coming in on me, and I was trailing them, I admit, and hoping for an opportunity to shoot at my job. And the guy on the left that just lost his wingman was in the sun, so I looked over, and the other 2 were reversing on around, and the lead airplane, who happened to be an ace from World War II, was shooting at me, and I got my sight on. When he came in range, I fired a short burst, and I may have hit him, but anyway, he stopped firing, and he turned away, and I looked over, and his wingman was coming right at me shooting, and I reversed over and started. When I had the solution, I didn't waste any bullets, thank heavens, and opened the fire, and he quit firing, and he slid. I'm sure he was dead. He just slid underneath me. And from then on, there was no more formation. It was just individuals taking their time like a gunnery exercise, 1 in, 2 off, and that sort of thing. And my attention was behind me where that's where they're going to shoot. And they had the advantage on everything airplane-wise, except we probably had about equal opportunity in turning. But I was slower, and you could turn tighter.
Was that the plane?
At the same G, right?
Okay.
And they would come on down, and I'd pull into them and mess up, and they'd have to climb back up again. And some of them made mistakes. One of them came in and slid right in front of me, and I opened up on him, and pieces came off, and I had to maneuver hard to avoid from hitting him. This went on for 35 minutes, and I had a guy, I shot at a lot of them, and they shot a whole bunch at me. And now
there's a
got
quote.
one I've hit, and he's quit maneuver. He's just flying flat away, and he's burning and dropping down. And I was going to give another little squirt to kind of polish him off. I don't know why I did. It was my mistake. It's the only time I flew straight and level in the whole darn fight, and it was a mistake. That guy behind me, I'm not turning, and he just moved in behind me, and I ran out of ammunition, and I looked around, and there he was. I turned hard right, and in that turn, he hit me with a 37 millimeter right in the wing butt into the accessory section of the engine, where the hydraulics and all that is. Cut the cables to the rudder, and I still had an elevator, and that's what I'm flying by. So, time to get out of there, and I knew where the clouds were. This was all in clear air, all the way down the ocean. The storm had passed by. So I headed toward those clouds, and I knew task force was under them, and the guy was sitting at perfect range behind me, just shooting away, and I pulled back on the stick and go up, and I put forward on the stick and go down, and the bullets are going over me, then under me, and over me, and I got into the clouds, and I lost sight of him. I guess he lost sight of me, but I thought, gee, I probably better reject. Things are wrong. I said, oh no, no one's going to rescue me. I'm just going to die here. So as long as it's flying, I stuck with it, and I flew instruments down. I knew the base of the clouds, so we're down to 400 feet, and proceeding into the task force, and there, guns ready, ready to fight, authorized to shoot unless they had been identified. And there was a mistake in CIC, who they knew who I was and talking to me. They have a gunnery liaison officer, and they're supposed to talk to each other, and he controls all the guns.
Yeah.
And they were authorized to shoot if we are not a friend. And they hadn't been told I was a friend, so they shot at me. But my commanding officer had just taken off and was going to be my relief, and he was still under the clouds and saw what was going on, and he called him off his friend. So that problem went, and now it's going to be, what am I going to do? I could eject. No, I couldn't. I'm too low. In that airplane, you had to be 1,200 feet level or climbing in order to assure survival in the ejection system.
Were you
And I was
over
down
water?
at 300-400 feet.
Freezing water.
Freezing water. It's you don't have much time in that cold water.
I can't hear you.
Ejection.
You don't have much time in that cold of water.
Oh, no.
And that plane
no,
had
about 18 minutes.
Yeah. That plane had a horrible. It had an early ejection seat, so it was very violent.
Yeah, this was winter time.
Yeah.
anyway, they had the flight deck loaded for another one last launch against the ground targets, and then we're going to get out there and go back to 38 parallel where we normally operate. And this was our last flight on the firing line anyway. So get aboard. I found out that the airplane stalled out at around 170 knots or so, and so I knew I had to be fast. And I notified the landing signal officer. I switched to their radio, and they said they called the captain and said, "Captain, he's going to come in hot." And he said, "Well, we were in this storm. We had all kinds of wind, and he had bring him in any speed he wants." Okay. So I've got about 10 minutes to kill while they're pulling all the aircraft forward of the barricade. And when that happened, they gave me the all clear to land, and I had positioned myself as best I could to be downwind, so that when they turned into the wind, I would be aiming in the right direction to land on the ship. But I couldn't line up with them. I'm over here, and the ships are in the wind going here, and I got it closer. I said, "Oh, I'm going to just cross over the deck and go in the water." But I'm close to rescue anyway. I mean, that's option. So I kept coming, and got on the ball, and I'm flying it because it's mainly rudder, not elevator, which I had because it's a matter of, I was aimed at it, and now I have to control my elevation, and I could do that. But I couldn't line up, and I told the LSO I can't line up, and they called the captain, and he could see it. And so as I got in there, he turned the ship and lined it right up with me, and I just kept coming. Number 3 wire.
Wow.
Not smooth, because we were just...
Doesn't matter. They threw the plane away.
Yeah.
You said God talked to you,
You
right?
got the 3 wire. That's all that
Oh,
matters.
no, this was Bud Eisenhower, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Oops.
I'm off base.
Oops.
That's okay. It was a wonderful story.
This is the lead up to the
Yeah,
Eisenhower.
exactly. The background.
Well, actually, Royce, before you get there, so you go down to debrief, and where did you get intercepted? Because you normally go down to intel to debrief to tell them what you did, and then when did you get intercepted by the strike group commander or the task group commander about, okay, this is now classified?
Task group commander never talked to me. I was his official. I was the official wingman for, I think, 5 CAGs.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Like Richardson, Sam's daddy.
Right.
Yeah, that was my job.
But who told you
But,
that? Who
and
was
I
it that
was-
told you that the mission's now classified?
Huh?
Who was it that told you that the mission is now classified?
Oh.
When did you have that conversation?
So I was the first to land, and then they brought the others in. And I arrive in the ready room, and there's the intelligence officer, and he says, "Well, we'll go back to where the debrief area is." And there, except for the commanding officer and his division that took off, they're all sitting there because they were general quarters. And they're grinning and smiling and say, "Nobody said anything." So I said to the intelligence, "What's with these guys?" He said, "I made them promise not to say anything until I get through debriefing." Okay. So we went back to the debrief area. I'm sitting there and he's sitting there. "Well, aren't you going to debrief me?" "No, I'm going to wait to talk to the flight leader first." He had nothing to do with it. He was the last one to land. And the intelligence center in the ship is on the squawk box. "Mac, get in here. Washington's on the line. They want a Nolly report now." And he put up with it. And of course, his internal whatever's building. And I'm sure he's getting pretty nervous. And finally, the last one did, and so he talks to the original flight leader and said, "Hey, I wasn't involved." The second guy, who was the guy that called off when I said, "I need some help here," and the only thing left was this guy that was down now to 8,000 feet smoking, and they vectored him from 13,000 feet down in the clear, and he came in from 90 degrees out and out of range. He fired a short burst, and this guy knew he isn't getting anywhere. He's going to crash, so he ejects, and Middleton sweeping on around to get at his 6, and so he circled him in the water down there. So he told what he did, and then my wingman, so to speak, didn't do a darn thing and never fired a shot and everything. And as the need came, "Mac, get in here." So he just left. And I got to talk a little bit about what I did, and he went in and he made up a report, which was the official Navy report, sharing the glory. Okay, something for everybody. And I was ordered to report to Admiral Briscoe, the senior admiral in the Western Pacific, and he had information from NSA, who had their first operational contact on the Helena cruiser right off from Vladivostok, where they saw the whole thing on scopes and ears. They knew exactly what took place, and they have never told me. They have my gunnery film, and they have everything. So, as the time went on and we finished our time in the Western Pacific and we're coming back and they're giving awards, they just basically gave us all the same thing as all we did. And that remained it. And when I was debriefed, I was told to never tell anybody that you got at least 3. They told me right off the bat.
Yes.
That's what he
Was
told
there
me.
any contact from the Kremlin to the Pentagon back and forth? Hey, why are you shooting at us? Or
Oh yeah, Eisenhower.
yeah,
Eisenhower.
The man of the hour. I want to hear the drinking stories.
That's right.
your time's up.
Cocktails and
Yeah,
debrief with the president.
So, back in Washington, D.C. in those days, they were having a presidential election. And General Eisenhower ran on the Republican ticket. And he won. He said, if elected, I will go personally to the Korean theater and take charge, see what's going on out there. And then this report came through, and he was at a level that he got to see the truth from NSA. And so he knew, and he said, I want to see that guy. So he came out, and they made arrangements to send me to Busan and wait for Admiral Chaco Clark, and wait for him to Seoul, and then I was stashed in a hotel saying, if this really comes about, we'll send a limo for you. And stand by the phone. Got a call, limo arrived, get in there, and they had somebody with a bayonet about every 100 feet, all the way around University of Seoul, which was 8th Army headquarters. And I came to the gate, and there was a captain MP in charge of the guard. And they jerked me out of the car and brought me into their little post. And they said, who are you? What are you doing here? I hadn't been briefed.
Oh my God.
And I said, and the phone rang, and it was Admiral Clark on the other end. And they said, have you got a Lieutenant Williams on there? What's your name? Williams. Yes, sir. And then he started swearing. Put the phone out here, and he directed me to get back in there. And I arrived up there, and the Admiral was out there, it was snowing, and he came out and brush the snow off me and pull my hair and get me ready for the appearance. And my gosh, it was all of the people. I knew by name everyone that was in there because they were all the World War II hotshots. And so I met all of them and we're killing time. And the president wasn't in the room yet, but he came in and Mark Clark says, "Gentlemen, the president," and we all snapped to, "At ease, boys, at ease." He came in, they directed him over to me, the only guy he didn't know. And we chit-chatted, he got introduced, he took me by the elbow and led me about 30 feet away maybe to a big overstuffed leather chair and pressed me in it. And then he sat on the arm of it. Then he put his arm around me. And he says, "Lieutenant, before we get down to business, we ought to have a drink, don't you think?" "Oh, yes, sir. Well, we have bourbon and scotch water and soda." My son John's the bartender. "What do you have?" "A bourbon and water." "Young man, we have awfully good scotch." "Oh, sir, I drink bourbon." "We have great scotch." "Saying that's right. I am a bourbon drinker." "Lieutenant, we've got the world's greatest scotch." "Mr. President, I drink bourbon." Everybody in the room was drinking scotch but me. So, and he says, "Oh, John, give him a bourbon and water." So I had a bourbon and water. And then we chatted.
That is a great
And
story.
we didn't talk anything about MiGs or anything else. He knew I couldn't say anything, and I didn't. We talked about other things. He says, "You know, in my new job, I'm going to have something to do with the equipment you use." So we talked about that.
Wow.
Aviation and whatnot.
That's great.
Did you ever meet him again?
No.
Eisenhower?
No, but we went for a great dinner with all the aides of these guys, and they had a wonderful setup and a great meal. And while I was in there, I got tapped by a messenger that Admiral, what's going to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, wanted to see me in his private room. So I went in there and chatted with him separately before.
When did they finally decide? I think it was 2000. They finally decided to release the files that you.
Yeah, it was around 2002, I think.
Did you get a call? Did you get anything, or they just say, go tell your story?
Walking down the street, don't expect a heart attack.
Did they tell you to
Did
tell
I
you?
say what?
Now, when did you know that you could talk about it?
Well, yeah.
Admiral Richardson, who I had served with 4
Okay,
times.
sure.
I was
So I understand.
wingman way back then. It was at a down Tail of headquarters, a happy hour, and he said, "Royce," and he had spent a lot of time in intelligence, so he knew more. "Royce, there's more to that story than you've been able to reveal, isn't there?" Yes. He says, "It's been downgraded and you can now talk about it."
Wow.
What am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
I said, I got to kill my wife.
Night, everybody.
I told my wife,
Have a good one.